Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Prairie Puck Boys podcast. I'm here with Tyler Verloop. The two are sadly unavailable today. Today we have a guest as TV news director slash anchor at Bridge City News. Hal Roberts joins us today. Today we're going to talk about the NHL playoffs and the matchups if we started today. But first, let's get to know Hal a little bit more. So Hal,
Hey guys. Yeah, hey, thanks a lot for this invite. I really appreciate it with the podcast. Yeah, I mean, when you said, Hal, let's talk a little bit about the NHL, I thought it'd be kind of cool to share some of my experiences. I've been a broadcast journalist for about 32 years. I worked in Parliament Hill as a national parliamentary reporter. I had a business show on BNN. I worked at Global TV in Calgary, and I've been around the block a few times. And along the way, I had a chance to interview some NHL players and coaches, and I'm looking forward to sharing some of those experiences.
Yeah, so just to start, could you kind of talk about the players who you have talked to? Like I know on last Friday you talked about Theo Fleury and Jerome McGinley, for example. Can you just kind of talk about who your favorites were?
Yeah, Jerome McGinley was probably one of the most humble, down-to-earth athletes I've ever interviewed over my 32 years. And I was really impressed by the guy. Interviewing him in front of the Sutter Club and his rookie campaign. I'm broadcasting live out of a full-size Chevy van, hosting a show called Roberts on the Road at KG Country in Red Deer. And he was just a real humble guy. And he said, Mr. Roberts, and thank you, Mr. Roberts, and please. And really, really cool. But it's funny, when I was hosting the show Roberts on the Road, get this, the wintertime, I went out to Sylvan Lake in the middle of the lake, broadcasting, and I got stuck out in the middle of the lake in the snow, right? So I went on the air, live on the air, saying, is anybody that's listening right now can come out and give me a hand? You're never going to believe who shows up in the snowmobiles. Brian Sutter, the head coach of the Calgary Flames, and his buddies, they show up, and they're rocking the van left and right to get me out of the snowbank so I could be on my way. It was a really cool experience. But yeah, no, some of the other people I've talked to, I mean, Jacques Demers, the former HAB coach, when I worked for the Sun News Network in Parliament Hill as a national parliamentary reporter, I mean, I took a bus with him up there, and he looks at me and I said, hey, you're Jacques Demers, right? Because he was a senator in Ottawa at the time. He's retired now. And he looks at me because I'm 6'4", 240. He says, do you ever play hockey? I said, no, I actually play football. I was an offensive tight end. He said, you should have played hockey. You're a big man. Jacques Demers, And Bob Sauvé, I don't know if you guys, maybe your dads probably know that name. He was an all-star goalie with the Buffalo Sabres way back in the 80s. And I was actually interviewing him because his son was playing in the World Under-17 Hockey Championships in Red Deer back in the mid-90s. And I had this all-star goalie joining me and broadcasting live on location. It was pretty cool hearing some of the fascinating stories that he shared about his NHL career.
Yeah, for sure. And can you kind of talk about your first job you talked about last Friday was you kind of talked about working for the Olympics and the TV crew there. Can you kind of talk about that experience?
Yeah. I graduated from Mount Royal in Calgary, my alma mater, back when it was a college. Now it's a university. And it's funny, I was just there over Christmas and I looked at this place and I'm like, man, that place is huge. Like it's grown a lot since the 80s, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, CTV hired a bunch of us college bums. We graduated and I worked as an assistant Olympic liaison officer for the East German camera crew. Ich kann Deutsch sprechen. I can speak German fluently, right? And that was back in the days when Katharina Witt, the figure skater, she won the gold medal for East Germany at that time. And I got a chance to see Gaetan Boucher, the speed skater for Canada, who was one of our Olympic hopefuls, medal hopefuls to win a medal. Unfortunately, he didn't win a medal. But the funny thing is, at the beginning of the race, about a third of the way through, the cowbells were going with the speed skating. And it's like, hey, he's going to win a medal, right? But then those 37-year-old legs gave out and he finished like 17th or something. So, but yeah, I covered the opening, closing ceremonies. It was a really cool experience. And if any of you guys ever get an opportunity to work the Olympics or volunteer at the Olympics, I highly recommend it, especially the Winter Games where Canada really excels.
Right on. And I'm going to take this one to you worked in Medicine Hat and Lethbridge. So the ultimate question is Canes or Tigers?
Oh no, Canes all the way. Absolutely. Love the Hurricanes. And when it comes to the two cities, I mean, sure, I love both cities, but the Hat is kind of a different beast because the Hat has a lot more retired folks there. Mm-hmm. So in about 5 years when I retire, I'll be moving. No, I'm kidding. But no, they're both wonderful cities, but yeah, Canes all the way. I just, like you guys, I'm really kind of disappointed the fact that, the season's been canceled and we don't have any hockey right now. It's very sad. We should be in playoff hockey right now.
Oh, definitely. I'm pretty sure those two teams would have matched up too.
Yeah, what a rivalry, right? The Tigers and the Canes, and it's almost like the Oilers and the Flames. It goes back so many years, and and great teams. You know, when I actually worked at Chat Television in Medicine Hat as a news anchor, and Willie Desjardins, he was the head coach and GM at the time, and his wife, Rhonda Carlson, was my co-anchor at Chat TV. So, you know, when you're in the Hat, you obviously have to cheer for the Tigers. They had a pretty competitive team back then, and I was in Medicine Hat probably 2004, 2005. So, yeah, they had a very good team back then.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure. I think they went to the Memorial Cup and they won the WHL title in 2007, I believe.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So,
I grew up there until like age 12, I think. Then I moved back to Tabor. So I've been cheering for both teams. I can't really pick a side. But
yeah.
I enjoy the rivalry for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. And a great rivalry. They both have two solid teams, you know, definitely.
And kind of a more sad question for me. So, you know, the Flames lost in Stanley Cup in 2004 to the Tampa Bay Lightning after a controversial call. So did it go in? Did the puck cross the line?
Yes. That Jelena goal was in. You know what would have been cool, guys, is the fact that Marty Jelena had the series-clinching goal in every series. And if they would have counted that goal against Tampa Bay, it was a Game 6, then he would have had in every series. He would have the – oh, man, it's – okay. Now I can't sleep tonight. Thanks a lot for that. Bring it back there. But, I mean, the Flames were underdogs, right? That 04 Cup run. I mean, they knocked off some big players. Like, I mean, Vancouver finished ahead of them in the standings. I think it was San Jose.
San Jose was ahead of them too, yeah.
It was pretty impressive, that Cup run, with Iggy, with Kiprusoff. But Marty Jelena, as much as you talk about how great Iggy was, put the team on his shoulders, and Kipper's outstanding goaltending. What do you guys think?
I watched the game live, and I thought the puck was over, and I had like a temper tantrum for the next like week and a half.
You were in person, Mike?
No, I wasn't there in person, but I watched the game on TV.
Yeah, I'm an Oilers fan. I didn't watch it.
There you go. See,
I watched in 06 though when we went to
there you
Game
go.
7. But
And you lost to Cam Ward.
yeah, I don't want to talk about that.
Isn't that when the Oil lost to the Hurricanes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Carolina Hurricanes. It's sad. You got two great hockey markets like Edmonton and Calgary. You know, we love our hockey so much, and we lose to these Sun Belt states, these Sun Belt cities. I don't know if you guys saw, but when the Canes won the Stanley Cup, you know what their parade consisted of? Essentially just driving around the arena a few times with a few hundred fans in the cup in the back of a halftime. That was basically their parade. Like, really? Could you imagine if the Oil would have won it back? You know, I mean, the Red Mile in Calgary and, you know, in Edmonton, I mean, it just would have been lit up with hundreds of thousands of people. Because I remember when I was a kid and the Flames won their one cup in '89, I went downtown like everybody else, right? And we're walking and screaming and hollering. And it was an incredible time. I mean, I was pretty young back then, but it was a great time.
Do you have a favorite Battle of Alberta memory?
Yeah, when Steve Smith shot the puck and went off a Grant Fuhr's pad into the net.
I've seen highlights of that one.
The ironic thing is Steve Smith went to play for the Flames years later, and so did Grant Fuhr. I saw Fuhr wearing a Flames jersey. I'm like, this ain't right. This can't be.
It almost seemed like half the team
McDonald putting on an Oilers jersey, right?
Yeah. Well, did Anderson also go to the Flames at one point?
Glenn Anderson? I'm not sure about Anderson, but
I don't think so.
Hey, let me ask you guys something. When Gretzky was traded, you know, from the Oilers to the Kings, I mean, that shook up a lot of us. Like, even me as a Flames fan, I mean, I had a lot of respect for Gretzky and the Oilers back in the 80s because they were the best team in the league. Calgary was so close, you know. I mean, they're like when the two teams met the Battle of Alberta, for me, that was like an all-star game. Whoever won that series is going to go on to win the cup. That's how much talent there was on both teams, you know. But let me ask you something. When Gretzky was traded, I mean, that was a long time ago. You guys probably don't remember much about that, right?
Yeah, no, he retired the year I was born. So.
oh, there you go. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, all good.
Yeah.
No, that was kind of how it was kind of similar with me with Iggy when he got traded. It was kind of very similar. It's like, oh my God, what's going to happen now? Like, our star player is gone. Like, what's next for the team?
For me, that big trade was Hall actually in 2016.
Oh, but I'm
right.
You were so mad probably though because that trade is so god awful.
I cried a little bit.
What do you guys think of the Neil Lucic trade, huh?
Um,
Yeah, as an Oiler fan, you're like, yeah.
Yep.
Tyler's been arguing with us for the past year about it. So
But it's apples and oranges. Lucic wasn't brought over to score goals, right?
Exactly.
He wants, to try and open up the ice for Johnny Hockey, just kind of like police the ice a little bit more. So the Flames are pushed around. Like Colorado just pushed them around like there was no tomorrow when they were knocked out in, 5 games last year?
after
they
winning
won
the
the
first
first
game.
game. Yeah, and they shut them out. What was it, 4-0 in the first game? I'm like, hey, we're going to sweep the Avs. Nope, that was it. Nathan McKinnon just took over and said, that's it. You guys are done. You're out.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we had a podcast the day after that first game, and all of us were like, "Oh, it's a 4-5 series. It's over. Like the Flames have won the series already." And then Tyler comes in with his,
Nope.
the Avalanche are going to come back, and then they did.
Yeah. No, that's right. And I was really hoping, the Flames and Oilers would meet in the playoffs this year, but I was hoping for a second round, not a first round matchup. Because you don't want 2 Canadian teams playing in the first round. One of them's out already, right? We only have 7 Canadian teams in the league.
And we haven't won a cup in so long, so got to get something.
When was the last Canadian? Wasn't the Habs in '93?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Came close last, I guess, Edmonton, Vancouver, Calgary. We all got pretty close recently.
That's right.
More on that Neil and Lucic trade. Regardless of the players, I think the fact that you can't buy Lucic out makes it a win for Edmonton.
And we can't unprotect him in the draft either for Seattle. Yeah. Not that Seattle would take him anyway, but
hey, did Seattle decide on a team name yet?
Oh,
I don't think so.
I want them to be the Seattle Totems. That's my idea. I don't know why. I saw a picture of it one time and I was like, that's pretty cool. I want that.
Yeah.
So
but think about the rivalry now with the Canucks, and then as you make your way down the West Coast, with the Kings, obviously with the Sharks and the Kings in Anaheim. There's going to be some good rivalries there now with Seattle in the league, coming into the league, right? And how about Portland? Could you imagine if Oregon got a team as well? And that whole West Coast would be locked up in good rivalries.
Yeah, Portland definitely has that crowd for sure. Like the Portland Trailblazers, for example, when they won the series last year in the NBA, and there's the huge reaction. Like that'd be so cool to see in the NHL for sure.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Do you have any crazy minor hockey stories you like to share from over the years?
Do I have any crazy minor?
Like, have you covered any crazy minor hockey stories from like parents, or even like a Cinderella story run from a team?
Well, I do remember. This is actually kind of a funny story. I'm on the air at CKGY in Red Deer, and I'm hosting the evening show. So I'm on the air, 6 to midnight. And Mike Toth, he used to be with Global Calgary, was a sports anchor, and he went on, I think, to Sportsnet or whatever. He used to call me all the time for the Olds Grizzlies scores. What's going on with the Grizz, Hal? Tell me what's going on with the Grizz. And back then, the Grizzlies were a powerhouse team in the AJHL, right? And he'd have the Royals, the Calgary Canucks scores, everybody else, but he's always asking me for the Grizz scores, which was funny. But no, I had a chance to actually be the in-house announcer at a couple of the World Under-17 Hockey Championships games. And it was a challenge because some of those players' names were pretty difficult to pronounce, right? Some of the Russian players' names and the Slovakian players' names. And so that was pretty interesting, though, But I love junior hockey. I love going to the Canes games because it's affordable family fun. And you see great hockey. You see some good goaltending, nice breakout passes, 2-on-1 plays. Sometimes you see the odd scrap, old-time hockey, but it's good bang for the buck. I invite families to come out and really enjoy themselves. Unfortunately, the NHL now, it's so expensive. You can easily drop $1,000 a night for a family of 4. And I don't know how families can afford to go to the NHL anymore, see the NHL games.
For sure. Yeah. Do you think the Canes had a chance to win the WHL title this year?
Oh, wow, that's tough. I think they had a good chance to get out of their division. But winning it all, there's some little competition in Saskatchewan, right? There's some good competition there, too. How about you? What do you think about the Canes? What do you guys think?
Mike?
I don't follow the WHL as much as I do with the NHL, so I'm going to give it over to Tyler.
Oh, okay. I actually kind of like the way the Portland is running their team for most of the season. They were on a quick roll there. They had a lot of good prospects and players playing up to their potential. Like you said, in Saskatchewan, I can't remember who was at the top of their division, but I know Swift Current wasn't doing good. Regina wasn't doing good. I don't know if PA was actually doing well. I think Moose Jaw was down there too. I can't remember which team.
Was it maybe the Raiders? Yeah, maybe it was the Raiders. I don't know.
Yeah, the Raiders went on a tear last year and won. I think Edmonton was actually the top team this year so far.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Edmonton, yeah.
Edmonton and, those U.S. teams were actually pretty good too. I thought the Canes may have been able to get to round 3, but that's where they've been the last few years, right? They haven't been able to get to that finals. But I don't know. I trust their management crew lately. I think if they would have kept that pick that they traded to Regina from that Stuart Skinner trade, they would have gotten the first overall pick this season.
Do you think the Canes have the goaltending?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I believe in Tedachuk just as a local talent, but I don't know if he could have withstood that pressure.
Yeah.
He's a young goalie too.
Yeah. So let me ask you guys something. Let's go back to the NHL for just a moment here. If you could not cheer for your team, or let's say if your team left and went somewhere else, let's say if the Oilers left and or they folded or the Flames folded, who would you cheer? Who would be your backup team, your second team? I'll tell you mine in just a sec. Okay, Michael, start with you.
I'm going to go with the Winnipeg Jets. I love Connor Hellebuck. He's my favorite goaltender in the NHL.
Okay.
And I just think I would still cheer for a Canadian team, I think. And I just think the fact that I love the goaltending there. I love Scheifele. I love Laney. I like pretty much a lot of their players on that team. I just think that alone will be a good reason for you to cheer for them. If it's a non-Canadian team, I'd probably go with Florida. I like their offense. I like Barkov. I like Huberdeau. I really like how that team is structured. And I think eventually when they get their stuff together, like Bobrovsky, for example, once they get that together, I think they'll be a lot better.
Cool.
I got like a 3-way tie here, actually. I like the way Colorado plays just based on speed and skill. They have a lot of talent over there, and they exploit it really well just based on how they play. Carolina Hurricanes, they seem to have a lot of fun, and I've been following like advanced analytics for a while now, and they've been on the cutting edge of that recently, especially for a budget team, and they've been making it work. I think they're about to pop off here if they can have the goaltending. And then my last one was just from a watching perspective. I really like the way Washington plays. They're pretty smooth in all facets of the game.
Do you think Ovechkin will catch Gretzky for goals?
I wanted to say he did. Skating sometimes can like wear down, but I think he'll always have that elite shot no matter what. And if they can exploit that, even if he's like 40 years old, just put him on the left dot and let him rip him.
Yeah.
I don't personally think
teams,
so.
Guys, I think for teams, for me, it would have to be the Leafs. If it's like an original 6 team, and I spent many years in Ontario. I've got a lot of friends from Southern Ontario, and I actually went to see the Flames, and one of Matt Sundin's last games, it was a 5-4 overtime win for Toronto, and Sundin scored a hat trick. It was 500th career NHL goal, and I stood up with everybody else at the ACC and gave a standing ovation. He was an incredible electric player. And I like Tavares. I think he's a great leader, and Matthews. And I just think they've got an exciting team. And Anderson between the pipes, and Leaf fans are nuts. And I kind of go into that probably fall into that category too. For an American team, man, that's tough. I don't know. Maybe the Chicago Blackhawks, because I love Taves. I love Patrick Kane, and they're an exciting team still to this day. And they've got so much great talent there. So. Yeah, but it's always fun just kind of thinking, if you couldn't cheer for your one team, that you either bleed blue for the Oilers or red for the Flames, and who would you cheer for, right? But nobody said Montreal. Nobody said Montreal. What's going on?
I'm not a fan. I don't know.
When we were talking,
go ahead, Mike.
We were talking with Jordan the other day, and we all ranked the Habs the worst Canadian team right now. So I don't think any of us like them right now.
Wow, even worse than the Ottawa Senators, because the Sens are – I've got a buddy of mine, Ray Fillion. He's a reporter on Parliament Hill for TVA, and he's a huge Sens fan. And yeah, he's like, Hal, I love my team, but they're not doing very well.
Yeah, we just we chose Ottawa over Montreal just because they had so much young talent coming up and stuff like that. So we felt that the Canadians keep revamping their roster with older players, and we just feel like the Ottawa Senators are going to be better in the future.
You know, if the Habs didn't have Carey Price, where would they be? I mean, he's
I
their
don't
all-star,
know.
right? He's the best player.
I would normally say I don't know if Bergeron would have made the move, but if you could free up that $10.5 million that Carey Price is making, maybe they can actually get a center that they've been needing.
They tried with Aho last summer, so
Yeah, that offer sheet. I don't know. Those never worked out really.
well, no, because you can never determine the value of a player really.
And
How
then
about
again,
PK Subban and Shea Weber? What did you guys think of that trade?
I think the Canadians won it 100%.
Wow.
Even though Shea Weber was hurt for that whole season, I just think that he's been so impactful, and now PK is awful in New Jersey. So
yeah, at the time, I thought it was a clear win for Nashville just based on a younger puck moving D. But as you've seen over time, PK's ability, he kind of wore down a bit. He's gotten injured a bit. I think I depreciated Weber's game and just how solid he was.
Who do you think is one of the most overrated players right now in the NHL? Overrated.
Mike, you go.
overrated players in the NHL.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Jamie Benn on the Dallas Stars.
Really?
I just think he's fallen off so much and people still overvalue him. He's only getting 40, 50 points a year despite not being able to have – he doesn't get the 90 points anymore and he can't skate that fast anymore. And he can't do it as well as he used to do it. And I just think that he disappoints on that team. Even though that team's really good, he gets carried by Sagan sometimes, in my opinion. That's I don't like Jamie Benn that much.
I'm going to go right to Calgary with Sean Monahan.
Oh, come on. He's a perennial 30-goal scorer, man. What do you want?
I don't know. I expect more from him as the first-line center.
For me, it's got to be Joe Thornton at the San Jose Sharks.
Yeah?
Yeah, I don't know. He's never won the big one. You know, it's like, every year San Jose is going to go to the finals led by Joe Thornton. They're going to walk over everybody. And it just never happens, for San Jose. Mm-hmm. I think that whole team is overrated. I think they've underachieved over.
And I think they're all overpaid right now, too.
Yeah, those are tough contracts to get out of.
Yeah, they're going to be spinning their wheels for a while, too. You could even mention Erik Karlsson there as well. He got hurt. He's basically going on one ankle, but they locked him up 8.5 or something for 8 years, and it's not looking too great.
It's funny, when he was in Ottawa, he was an all-star, right? He was a great offensive defenseman, puck-moving defenseman, but in San Jose, not as much.
Yeah, that's always why I'm weary of locking up players when they're like 29, 30, right? Their body can go right away and stick with a span like that. That's why you got to pay the young guns early, and that's the way the NHL is trending now.
Who do you think is one of the most underrated players in the league right now?
Mike, we'll go back to you.
I'm gonna go with William. I'm gonna go with William Nylander. I think the way he's been playing on the Toronto Maple Leafs this year, I think he's been very good alongside Matthews, and I don't think he gets that credit just because he is overshone by Tavares and Marner and Matthews and Morgan Riley, and I just think he's been so underrated this season. He's been so good, and I think if the playoffs come back, he's going to be a huge reason if they get out of the first round.
I'm going to say Ryan. Go ahead. No, I was just going to say I'm going to actually pick an Oiler. I'm going to say Ryan Nugent-Hopkins.
Yeah.
As a Flames fan, I'd love to have that guy on my team. As much as you talk about Draisaitl and McDavid, who are incredible players, I've got a lot of respect for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, man. I think we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg with that guy's talent, and I think he could even be a 40-goal scorer in this league.
Definitely, especially on the wing where he doesn't have as much defensive responsibility that he's been shouldering over the years. And he's just been consistent, like I think 50, 60 points every season. Hell, he's been in Edmonton with like 6 or 7 different coaches now since 2011. Yeah. He's gone through a lot. He hasn't really made a fuss about it, which is good to hear. I would go with, although I think he has been getting the recognition lately, I'd go with Jonathan Huberdeau in Florida. He's consistently pointing up a lot of points. I really like watching him play.
That's cool.
Would you say he's the best player on Florida?
Normally I would, but I like my centermen and my two-way forwards, just watching those types play. Like I was in Calgary for a Battle of Alberta game, I think a couple years ago, 2017 maybe. I was more impressed with Taylor Hall than anybody I've seen. Nugent Hopkins rather than anybody else I watched, just for the two-way aspect. And it showed his hockey IQ more than anything.
You know what I think is funny? Taylor Hall, born and raised in Calgary, played for the Oilers. Jerome McGinley, St. Albert, grew up a Messier fan, and he played for the Flames. It's like something's not right here. Wait a minute.
Yeah, honestly. Always wondered how that worked out. Like he went and I don't know, did he get drafted in WHL and the OHL, or did he move to Ontario right before?
Who's that? McGinley?
Taylor Hall. He played in the OHL for the Windsor Spitfires.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So I was always wondering if he moved just before, or did he get drafted in both respective junior leagues?
Good question. Yeah, I don't know. But Iggy, he played for the Kelowna franchise, right, in the Dub, and he won a Memorial Cup, didn't he, with Kelowna? Or no,
I think it was Kamloops. Yeah,
Kamloops, the Blazers. That's right. Kamloops, he won the Memorial Cup. Yeah, and then he was originally drafted by the Stars, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And then in the Nieuwendyk trade, and then the Flames, when they traded Nieuwendyk to the Stars, they got this draft pick, and the draft pick turned out to be Jerome McGinley. So that was pretty cool.
Just going back to Taylor Hall, we talked to Jordan the other day about it. Where do you think he will go this offseason?
Sorry, what's that? I didn't hear that.
So we were talking about Taylor Hall the other day and where we think he's going to go this offseason. Where do you think he's going to go? Jordan said he was going to come to Calgary.
That would be incredible if he came to the Flames. But I don't know. I think he likes the bigger market franchises. Taylor Hall. I think he would maybe the LA Kings. Because they're rebuilding right now, and Hall he's not even 30 yet, is he? Taylor Hall.
He was drafted in 2010. That would have been 10 years, 28 years old, I believe.
So he's 28, right? So I think he's just going into his prime right now, and the Kings need to rebuild their team because they're pretty long on the tooth. So I would guess more like the bright lights of the big city, more something like LA, But if he came to Calgary, I would be ecstatic to get Taylor Hall. And then watch that Battle of Alberta with Taylor Hall going against the Oilers. That would be, wow, would that be something, hey?
Looking for blood.
Spark. Definitely. If I were to choose, I think personally, it's going to come down to what he prefers. I think he's only had 5 playoff games at 28. So I think he wants to push for the playoffs, but he also wants to get paid. He's only been making $6 million these last 6 years. So whatever team can give him like around 8-9 mil and a chance at winning the Stanley Cup, I think he'll go to. And that team for me would be Colorado.
Oh yeah, the Avs.
I still
imagine Hall and Nathan McKinnon on the same line.
Yeah,
Rantanen too, man. That line.
And then you got Landeskog, Kadri.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, no,
okay, how about? Yeah, I just want to ask you. How about getting back to the Oilers for just a sec here? Draisaitl, McDavid. Who would you like to see the Oilers get maybe in the offseason to play with those two guys? Because they tried so many other players,
He's a free agent this summer.
Who's a free agent, sorry?
Yeah, I don't know who the free agents are this summer. I can't think.
Oh, well, are we talking like trade or just pick one random player?
Sign somebody in the offseason or trade or whoever you can get access to. Let's say the world's your oyster. Any player you want in the league that can play with those two.
Okay. Actually, I would pick somebody to play with McDavid just because he's that good. I think he can play with anybody, but if you need somebody that can keep up with him, I'll go back to Huberdeau just because I think those two would line it up together. And secondly, I think our second line, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, and Yamamoto, I think they were arguably the best line in January and early February. They were putting up a lot of points and winning this game single-handedly.
Okay, let me ask you, Draisaitl or McDavid? Who would you choose?
This is hard. I have like 3 McDavid jerseys in here, but I've always come away more impressed watching Draisaitl.
A lot of people would agree with you.
Yeah, I don't know. I love the way Connor plays him. He's our rock, basically. But as more of like a student of the game, I like to call myself. I like Draisaitl's puck protection, and he sees a lot of lanes a lot of people don't. I'm more enamored with like smarts, more so than speed.
I've got friends in Toronto, Leafs fans. When I asked them the question about Matthews versus Marner, many of them choose Marner, Mitch Marner.
Yeah, I would too for that exact same reason.
Yeah.
Mike?
Who did I choose to put on a line? Man, I really wish we saw Taylor Hall with McDavid. That would have been.
They tried it momentarily when McDavid first got drafted, but they both need the puck in flight, right? It's kind of hard to like bounce between those two. But when they put Hall of Drysdale when McDavid got injured that first season, and those two lit it up. So I don't know if Drysdale is like the main cog that can play with everybody. I don't know.
But I think the main player I want to go with to play with Connor McDavid is Patrick Kane. I think a passer like McDavid giving it to somebody like Kane who can just snipe all the shots and get all the goals. I just think that would be the perfect setup for Kane and McDavid, and I think he would be able to keep up with them. I just think it would be a great combination for sure.
That's an incredible choice. So much talent on that line. Let's talk about the Norris Trophy last year, the big winner, Mark Giordano. Do you guys think it was well deserved for the Flames?
I think he was last season. I think he was one of the best defensemen. He's been kind of on the cusp the last couple of years, and I think that he deserved one at some point. I think it could have been a couple of years ago, like I think 2015. He had an incredible year as well, and I think they gave it to Carlson instead or something. But I think that he deserved it last year. He was one of the better defensemen in the league, but it does help that their offense was incredible last year.
Yeah, that's true.
I would definitely agree with Mike there. I think Gio deserved that last year for sure.
Yeah, he had a career year, and what was he, 36 or 37 years old? So
yeah, he was older.
Yeah, that's funny. I'm older than that, and it's like, yeah, he's an old man. He could be my younger brother with a few more zeros in his bank account. That's okay.
It's definitely weird to think that the players coming into the league are younger than me and Tyler now. Just the fact that they're younger than us now, and it's just like, oh, crap, we're getting old.
Or the fact that I'm watching the sons of the players that I grew up watching.
Yeah.
Which is the same thing in baseball, like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. for the Blue Jays. I remember his dad, Vlad Jr., with the Expos, and Kevin Biggio, Craig Biggio's son. Craig Biggio was an all-star with the Houston Astros. So it's just weird seeing the sons now playing the game that their fathers. I used to watch their fathers play,
Yeah, definitely. What would you say is the biggest change in the game from, say, the 1990s to now?
Less fighting. And you know what? It's kind of sad that I'm kind of an old school guy that way. I kind of liked when they dropped the gloves and, took care of business on the ice. So a lot less fighting. How about you guys?
Mike?
I think it's a lot more skill. I think the skating's improved. I think the puck handling's improved. I think there's obviously been more goals scored, like goalies back then were, I would say, able to stop the puck more. Their offense is more innovative now to get their guys open. And I just think that I think it's both ways. Goals are being scored, but at the same time, I would say.
Go ahead.
No, you go. You can judge me. Go on.
You think the goalies have been able to stop more pucks back then?
Well, I mean, true. The fact that they. Okay, yeah, you win.
There's like 8-7 games. The goalie, if you watch a couple of those Gretzky goals against the Flames, they dove around. They didn't really have any technical skills back then.
You know what's funny? I remember watching a lot of those battles of Alberta, and Grant Fuhr used to drive me nuts, as a Flames fan, because you could score 6 goals on the guy, but when you needed that 7th goal to win the game, nope, he would shut the gates. That's it. He'd shut it down. Didn't matter what you throw at him, right? He'd make another 35 stops, to end the game. The Oilers would win, 6-5 or whatever. It used to drive me nuts. He'd let in the weak goals, but when you needed that big goal, no, he'd come up with a big save. And that was the score when I won 280s. That was a different era back then,
Definitely. Would you say you're a big Matthew Tkachuk fan then, since you have a little bit of old school in you?
You know what? I love Tkachuk. I know Oilers fans hate him.
I don't mind him, honestly. I love his game. Yeah, I would say I'm a dedicated Oilers fan, but I like the game of hockey in general, and I think he combines skill and that Marchand-like ability and grit to piss people off. I love it.
Yeah. I love it. And he answered the bell with Zach Kassian, right? And Kassian showed him respect after that. And then I think 2 or 3 games after that, Tkachuk got into more fights, and he scored I think he had 3 Gordie Howe hat tricks in a row after that. It was incredible. But I like he and Brady Tkachuk, his brother in Ottawa too. He's another dynamic player. He's even bigger than Matthew Tkachuk.
Yeah, 6'3", I think. Those two will be fun to watch for a while. They're just like their dad too.
Yeah. Yeah, Keith Tkachuk was a hard-nosed player to play against with the Blues. Oh, man, he was a tough player.
Definitely. What did you think of the Battle of Alberta so far this season? Like, it was the main storyline for the whole NHL, I think, honestly.
I agree. I thought it was amazing. I think the Flames won the first 4 matchups, but then, the Oilers spanked Calgary and Calgary 8-3. And I was saying, like, let's bring it on. It's back. Finally, after all these years, we finally got the Battle of Alberta back. And that's why I was praying that we'd see them meet in the playoffs. Just all that intensity, all that skill. It kind of took me back to the 80s. What do you guys think?
We were actually watching that 8-3 game. All of us were at our buddy Justin's, and Tyler got a noise complaint because he was screaming at the top of his lungs because others were scoring all the time.
I don't remember that night.
It's a combination of him being drunk and the Oilers actually winning.
Yeah, I told them I finished my drink after every goal we scored, and I did not expect 8 to be that quick.
Okay, let me ask you, who would you choose in the biggest game, Smith or Koskinen?
I'd go with Koskinen.
Oh.
Just on the way he played throughout the whole season, he had a better save percentage. He was more consistent, whereas Smith was streaky. And I think he also had way more goal support than Koskinen did throughout the season so far.
I'd go with Smith. I think he's just proven in the playoffs. I think the way he played last year in the playoffs, it kind of shows that he was able to do it. So I think that the Oilers should turn to him.
Okay, how about in Calgary, Riddick or Talbot? Because Talbot's really come on strong in the last little while, and Riddick's been inconsistent. What do you guys think?
I think if the season comes back for a couple games, I think that the Flames should start Talbot in those games, rest Riddick even more, and then maybe play him in one game just to get the cobwebs out, and then play Riddick. I prefer Riddick personally. I think that he's got the swagger that you need in the playoffs, and he's cool, calm, and collected all the time. We've seen Cam Talbot choke in the playoffs before, so I just think that Riddick is the go-to.
What did you think when Riddick beat the Oilers in the shootout there, and he threw his stick up in the air and he was showboating a little bit? Some fans thought, that's cool, man. A goalie showing some emotion, why not? Just won a big game. But other people are saying, he's showboating. Because when Yamamoto scored in that 8-3 game, he did the same thing to Riddick. He stuck his chest out and went out, with his arms, like right in front of Big Save Dave, or they call him Big Siv Dave that game, right?
Oh yeah, I don't. It's hard to say. I like that amount of personality in the game, but at the same time, if you're gonna do that, you got to back it up the next game. You certainly didn't that next game.
Well, look at Jose Bautista, right? The big bat flip in the playoffs against Texas. The bat flip, he backed it up, right? Jose Bautista.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah, I love to see pushing guys in any sport. I love that. That's great. Great for the fans, and it shows that they're invested in the game, right?
Definitely. Mike, I wanted to go back on that point you made about Talbot choking in the playoffs. When did you say? When did you think he choked?
That series against Anaheim a little bit.
Which game?
The game where it was like 8-7 or whatever it was. Game you went to.
It was 7-1 for a win.
Oh, sorry, right.
We won that game.
Okay, never mind. I don't know what I was thinking. I thought that game was a lot more goals. I just didn't like the way he played for Edmonton in that playoffs in general. I just felt that he wasn't as strong as he could have been. But that's just my opinion.
I don't know. I think good teams can overcome the goaltending. I think that happened during that first series. I also think he got gypped in that game 5 where I think it was Prairie or Kessler was holding his pad.
Yeah.
When I think 15 seconds remaining, they ended up scoring and letting it go. I was in an Edmonton hotel at the time, and double overtime, Corey Perry puts it home, screwed us over. But yeah.
You know what? I think we can both agree as Oilers and Flames fans that we don't like Anaheim.
Yeah.
Guys like Kessler and Getzlaf and Perry, and oh man, those guys drove me nuts. I mean, they're talented, but they get under your skin.
They get away with a lot.
Oh yeah.
And Getzlaf loves playing in Calgary because he's a hitman player too.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm glad that those players are aging out. I think Perry's in Dallas now, and Kessler, I think, is pretty much retired at this point.
How can the Flames not draft Getzlaf, though? He played with a hitman. He was a great player there. He's had an incredible career. He's in your own backyard. How did you not see this? Like, what scouts? Like, where were they? Were they asleep at the wheel? Like, what happened here?
Yeah, I don't know. Back in 2003, that was like one of the star-studded drafts, too. I don't remember where they drafted. I think, did they take Phaneuf that year?
Oh,
Yes.
Dion
So,
Phaneuf, yeah.
so they must have. If they only had one first-round pick, they probably took Phaneuf 7th overall, and Getzlaff went like 17th, I think.
Wow. Yeah, Phaneuf in Calgary, he was dynamite, but there was some stuff going on off the ice behind the scenes. The reason why I had to get out of Calgary, but yeah, we won't go there.
Since we were talking with the Oilers and Flames as like a playoffs and stuff and whatnot, let's switch over to our playoff series. Mike, you want to lead us off?
Yeah, for sure. So Flames versus Oilers, we're going to start there. I think that's an Oilers series win, and I think that's in 7 games. I think the speed is just going to end up being too much, just like it was last year with Nathan McKinnon. And I think that the Oilers have a better offense, and I think Johnny Gaudreau kind of goes soft in the playoffs. So I think that the Edmonton Oilers are going to win this series in 7.
Al, what would you think?
I would say Flames in 6.
Okay.
And the reason I see that is because I think Lucic will bring his A game, and he's going to steamroll over a lot of guys, and they're going to have their heads up, and he's going to put them off a lot of their game, And I think because of that, Johnny Gaudreau will have a little more ice to skate around on, and Monahan will come to the forefront, and Kachuk. I think a lot of these guys are really coming into their prime right now, and I think Big Save Dave will really bring his big game because he's going to be pushed by Cam Talbot, because Talbot has proven that he can be a starter as well in this league. And I think that competition is healthy for a team. So you know what? And as much as I really respect the Oilers with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Draisaitl and of course Connor McDavid, I think that's all they really got for forwards. I can't really see, and I don't see the defense as strong as Calgary either. Especially if we've got Hamonic back, and I think I really love Gio and a lot of the Swedish defensemen that we have. So yeah, I would probably pick Calgary in that series.
I'd go with Edmonton, homer pick, obviously, but I think the playoffs, especially nowadays, are ran for your top end young centermen, and the Oilers have 2 of the best offensive players in the league down the middle. It's going to be very hard to line match against them, because if you say put your best D pair against McDavid, you're leaving Draisaitl against weaker competition. And I don't know if I'd necessarily do that even this season. But if you were to cover up Draisaitl per se, you have McDavid freed up a little bit now. The one thing that could work against them, they have a young decor. They're actually pretty skilled on the back end there, but they're really relatively inexperienced, I'd say. As for the forwards, we got a couple of additions at the deadline, and I think it was I don't know how to pronounce his name. Athanasiou, sorry, and Tyler Ennis. But they were showing like they produced in their first 2 games, I believe, but then they're having a little bit of trouble producing consistently. If they can bring that back, I think it'd be clear and away in Edmonton series. But with a lot of uncertainty, I think it goes 7. I would pick Edmonton, but it could very well go Calgary's way.
I think they're really evenly matched. Yeah, that's why I think so many of us were excited about a potential playoff matchup between these 2 squads.
Definitely. All right, Mike, which one's next?
And let's move on to the next matchup, which is the Vegas Golden Knights versus the Winnipeg Jets.
Oh, wow. Oh, man. Oh, that's tough. You know what? I'd have to say the Jets. I mean, Vegas, although they were in first place in the Pacific Division, and they've actually come on strong lately, but the Jets have so much talent. Like, I agree with you, and Connor Hellebuyck, he can steal so many games for you. And I think they just gel as a team, and they're a good, well-rounded team. And I think they were coming on strong. So I'd probably say the Jets, but in 7.
I'd go the opposite way. I'd go Vegas in 7, just because, yeah, they were in first, but I think they picked up Lehner at the deadline. If Fleury's having an off game, you can trust the backup goalie, who's arguably is a starter in this league. They showed up their defense with Martinez from LA there. He's decent, not the top guy, obviously, but they only needed to round out their back end a bit. And I honestly think they have one of the scariest forward core in the league so far. I like the Jets' offense as well, but I think their defense is limited.
I'm going to go with the Jets as well. My big question is, how healthy will Mark Stone be coming into the series? I think if he has his issues, then how good will the Vegas Golden Knights offense be? Their first line was very inconsistent this year. William Karlsson was very inconsistent. Marchessault had off games and on games. And I just think that you have players on the Jets who have been really good this season. I think players like Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, Patrick Laine is a perennial goal scorer, so he gets the job done when he needs it to. Connor Hellebuck's one of the better goalies in the league, and I think he does a fantastic job of covering up that defense, and I think that's why I had the Jets, and I'm going to say 7 as well.
Okay, wow. Next one, Mike.
Next series here is the St. Louis Blues versus the Nashville Predators. And for me, I'm going to go with St. Louis in 5. I think Nashville has been off and on this whole entire year. I think that Kakarina is getting older. How much can you trust him coming to the playoffs? Saros is still a little bit unproven. He's never been in a playoff situation, I don't think. I think Rene's mostly been the starter even when he has been bad. I don't think Saros has stepped in. And I think that their offense is not good enough to keep up with that St. Louis defense. And I just think that St. Louis is the better all-around team.
You encapsulated
You know what?
all
I'd
my
have
thoughts.
to agree with you. Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. St. Louis, and I mean, they went all the way last year. They won the cup. They gelled as a team. And if you ever want to talk about a team game, not a bunch of individuals playing, for themselves, but a team game, I think St. Louis Blues epitomize that. From the goaltending all the way out, with Binnington, I just think the team is it's just so solid, it's so well balanced and unselfish too. And the fact that they have 22 Canadians on the roster, more than any other team in the NHL, that bodes well for them too. It shows they have a lot of Canadian heart. So yeah, definitely go with the Blues. Probably the Blues in 6.
I would go with the Blues in the sweep, to be honest. I think they were leading their division at the end when the season stopped here, and they still haven't got Tarasenko back, who's arguably their most dangerous forward on offense.
He was ready to come back too.
Yeah, definitely. They're a really deep squad. I don't see the Predators doing anything against them.
And this next series is, in my opinion, one of the most interesting series of all the playoffs. The Colorado Avalanche versus the Dallas Stars.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Oh, wow. That's a tough one.
And me and Tyler have talked about this in the past. We think the Dallas Stars are going to go to the Stanley Cup. So,
well, you know what? Ever since their owner called them out, when they were not in a playoff position, they went on a roll, like in a big roll. Mm-hmm. And they had something to prove to themselves, to their fans, and to their owner, when he called them out. So, yeah, man, they've got so much talent. But Colorado, man, the talent that they've got with Landeskog and McKinnon, and their goaltending is solid too. So that's a tough one. But I would probably say Colorado in 7 in that matchup. It'd be very tight, though, very close.
Yeah, really tough series to predict. Are we talking like if the playoffs started today, Mike, or if it starts in the future? Like, are injuries still a part of this discussion?
Yes. I'm going to say if it started right now.
Okay, then I would go with Dallas just based on the fact that Colorado is extremely injured at this point. I think Rantanen's hurt again and some other key players.
I think he's out for a couple weeks.
But I think Colorado's next few years are going to be the years that they're either winning cups or getting very close to it. I think this year Dallas has a really deep decor that a lot of people underrate. Ben Bishop can arguably be one of the most consistent goalies in the league the last few years. And if they can unlock that offense to score a little bit more, you got to watch out. Plus, they already had a coaching change due to, I think, an unfortunate incident with Montgomery there. Yeah. I think that could spark a team midway through the season, definitely. And they've been doing pretty well since their rough start.
Speaking of coaches, speaking of coaches, what about Jeff Ward, interim head coach? Do you think the Flames will remove that tag, or are they looking at maybe somebody else, like maybe a Gallant, to come on board with the Flames?
I'd go for a Gallant right away.
Me too. I would, as good as they've played under Ward, I still think they've been so inconsistent, and I think they do need a fresh face in the locker room.
I was very surprised when Vegas fired Gallant. I really liked the style from day one in Vegas. Just it was up-tempo, offensive, good shooting. It was in-your-face hockey that a lot of people would appreciate now. Ward's not bad. I'm not as enamored with his coaching style.
I agree. Gallant would be amazing. And I think he would command the respect of the players for quite some time, where Ward has been a career assistant coach, right? So he's more like one of the buddies of the players instead of Gallant. Like, you guys play for me, you're in or you're out, right? So he would implement that structure and demand that respect and command it. So, yeah, I agree. Gallant would be a good choice.
And not to mention they would actually change the power play.
No kidding.
I'm so tired of our power play. Anyway, just going back to the discussion we had before, I would go with Dallas in 6. I think they're goaltending is just so good. If Ben Bishop falters, you have Hudobin right there. And even if you wanted to, you could do split games with those two, and you can have two goalies that are going to be amazing for you. And I think their defense is fast enough to keep up with Colorado. And I think that Tyler Seguin has been fantastic in the past in the playoffs. He tends to play bigger when it comes to that. And I think that's why Dallas will take this. I can't trust Grubauer quite yet in that.
Well, Francouz has been unreal for them lately.
He has.
What I've noticed. But I guess I didn't give you guys a game. I think it'd go to 7. I picking Dallas, but I can't doubt Nathan McKinnon.
It's hard to.
I think he'll push them that far as he can.
Well, he reminded me of like when Jerome McGinley put the team on his shoulders in the 04 Stanley Cup run, and they were such an underdog. McKinnon has that talent and that ability to put the team on his shoulders and say, come with me, guys, and we'll go to the promised land. I mean, he can dominate the game that much, as Flames fans discovered, last year. He's that dominant of a player.
Definitely. For the next series. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
I just kind of wanted to, before I move on to the other conference, I just wanted to kind of make it who do you think will make it to the Stanley Cup in the West?
Sorry, who's going to make it to the Stanley Cup when?
In the Western Conference.
Oh, in the Western Conference. Oh, wow. You got to have Vegas in there. Yeah, I'd probably pick Vegas to come out of the West. Yeah, especially with Marc-Andre Fleury, man, when he catches fire, and like you said earlier, the scary forwards that they have, and I don't see anybody really. Well, oh no, I'm sorry, the entire Western Conference. Yeah, St. Louis and Vegas. So probably St. Louis, if it's between those two. Yeah, St. Louis, but Vegas would be a close second for me. How about you guys?
We both say Dallas. We both said Dallas. I'm going to stay consistent with my Dallas pick. I'm going to continue to say that I think that goaltending is just fantastic. That offense, I think, will get better. Rupe Hintz also played very well last year, and I think he can improve on that. Tyler can talk about that. He loves Rupe.
Yeah, I took him in my fantasy league really late, and he paid some dividends right away. I did pick Dallas to go to the Cup in our previous podcast, but just to keep it fresh, I'll throw Edmonton in there.
So you guys think that Dallas would take out St. Louis?
Yeah, I think St. Louis might be a little bit tired.
Wow. Even getting Tarasenko back?
Yeah, honestly.
How healthy is Tarasenko though?
He should be good to go. He's been off since October.
Yeah, he should be. He should be 100%. But if he's not, how much rust does he have as well?
Yeah, you got to get back into game shape, right?
Definitely. And plus, I think losing Jane Bouwmeester for the foreseeable future might take a hit.
That was so scary when he collapsed on the bench there and his heart stopped.
Yeah.
And the defibrillator to bring him back and save his life. And many people think that he stopped playing for the rest of the season, but will he even continue? Or many people think he's just going to retire.
I would just retire. You have your cup at this point. You're 38 years old. You might as well just retire at this point. You've achieved what you've needed to achieve. And you have a lot of money at this point.
Yeah. Get healthy. Just enjoy your time with your family. It's not worth risking it.
Yeah, that's true.
And let's move over to the East now, where the first series will be the Washington Capitals versus the Carolina Hurricanes rematch from last year, where the Carolina Hurricanes won in 7 games.
I'm taking Carolina again. I really like their team.
I'm thinking
6.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm going to say Washington in 7. I think Ovi's tired of it. He wants to win a cup, and he doesn't want to go out in the first round. He doesn't want that choker label around his neck, And I'm going to say Washington, but in 7.
I'm going to say Washington as well. How healthy are the Carolina Hurricanes goaltenders? And the fact that they don't have players like Dougie Hamilton, who's hurt right now, I think that's a huge defensive anchor for them that they don't have. And Washington's completely healthy right now. And I think the fact that they are ready to go into this series, I think their only issue might be their goaltending, but Braden Holtby's been there before, so I think he will step up to the plate.
I'm on the other side of that argument. I haven't liked Holtby the entire season. I think he's been really inconsistent, and it's a contract year for him too. If he doesn't perform well, I think I could see him walking and going to free agency. And on the flip side, like you mentioned, Hurricanes, I don't know if their goaltending's healthy. It's still crazy. Both of them got injured in that one game. But like you mentioned about their defense, Hamilton's gone, but they shored that up with Brady Shea, Sammy
That's true.
Vatanen. If everybody comes back, and say if the playoffs start in August or September, whatever it may be, they're going to have a really deep decor and a really deep offense as well.
All right. Moving on to the next series, we have a rivalry that's been around for thousands of years, pretty much. The Flyers versus the Penguins.
Oh, come on. You got to go with Sid the Kid. Are you kidding me? Yeah. Sid the Kid, the Penguins. And, but they're not just a one-dimensional team with Pittsburgh. I mean, they can have some solid goaltending, and they spread the goal scoring around a little bit too. So, I definitely take them, but probably in 6 games over the Flyers.
I'm gonna go with the Flyers in 7. I think that this team is red hot right now. The fact that going into the break they were playing so well, and I think they really gelled with their coach. And I think the fact that they have goaltender like Carter Hart, who hasn't been there before, I think he's really going to show, kind of like Binnington did last year, that he is a great young up-and-coming goaltender. And I think their offense is fantastic. And I think that Pittsburgh's running out of gas when it comes to their older players. And I think that bringing in a player like Patrick Marleau, for example, who's going to be running out of gas as well, I think that the Flyers, carrying on with their hot streak and their young talent, are going to win this series.
The Flyers are definitely an enticing option, but like I said earlier about the Edmonton pick, you got to play for your centers, and I'm not doubting Gino and Sid over. I don't even think Drew's playing center right now. Couturier and Kevin Hayes, I think, is their second line center. I take Sid and Gino over them any day of the week. And plus, they've won 3 cups. You can't doubt them at this point.
They know what it takes to get it done, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A couple things with the Pittsburgh lineup I don't quite trust is their goaltending. I think that, do you ride with Murray going into this playoff run, or do you ride with Jari, who's been by far the better goaltender between the two, but he hasn't been there before? So how much rust will he have? How much nerves will he have? And just kind of getting into that first game, he and Carter Hart, I just think Carter Hart's the better goalie of the two, and I think he'll handle it better because he has been there before in the Calder Cup, I believe.
So what do you guys do, like, when it comes to the playoffs? Do you ride the hot hand going into the playoffs, or a guy who's proven, and he's been there before in the playoffs, he's a proven performer?
If you
take the hot hand or the guy who's proven himself?
I go with the hot hand.
I would go with the hot hand as well. I think Matt Murray's days as a starter in Pittsburgh is over. I think he'll be traded or will leave in this offseason. And I think it's Jari's team now.
I don't think he'll leave in the offseason. I think he's more of like a tandem goalie like we're seeing in the NHL nowadays, splitting 40-41 each or even 50-30. In the playoffs, if you look at the last 2 cups they won, Murray and Fleury split the net. If one of them started doing bad, they flipped them, and then Murray came in for the last little bit. I think Jari's good enough that they can do that again. Yeah, but I would start Jari at the start of the series first.
One other thing I want to say is they also have Casey Smith as well, who I think could be a solid goaltender as well. So I think when it comes to Seattle's expansion team as well, if he does come back, you got to choose Jari, I think, over Matt Murray.
Who do you think the Flames, and who should the Oilers leave unprotected for Seattle? Give me a defenseman and a forward, one each.
Okay. When are they coming? Is it 2021 off season, or is it the this one? Okay, so it's a year from now.
Yeah.
I would try to plan it around unrestricted free agents. So like Adam Larson's coming up at the end of 2021. I would leave him unprotected just for the fact that they can pick him and he can walk. You could re-sign him. I wouldn't want him anyways. I think they should move on from him and play some of our younger defense. On forward, I think they could, as much as I don't want them to do this, I think there's enough loyalty there that they could leave Ryan Nugent-Hopkins unprotected, given the fact that he's an unrestricted free agent, and he could re-sign in the offseason back with us at an increased cap hit by $1 million.
See, my thing is, though, if you're Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, you have the chance to go to Seattle and be the first-line center on that team. It might be a little risky. He
just got married, though, in Edmonton, like last year, I believe. He's been here for like 9 years. Do you really want to uproot your life and your family entirely? Where it's just starting to get good, and I think McDavid's 23, Draisaitl is 24. I'd stay there if I were them. He's in a really good spot. I don't know.
All right. So for the Flames, I hate to say this, but on defense,
TJ Brody. TJ Brody.
I would, yeah. If they don't re-sign him this offseason, I think, yeah, he's unrestricted right now. So if they don't re-sign him and it comes to this, I would say unprotect Gio because he is older. He's going to be 38 years old at that point, I think. So
He's your captain.
He is your captain, but you have to do what you have to do. You have so much younger talent coming up on the defensive side of it. I don't think you should protect a player like Gio on the defensive side of it if you have so many other younger pieces. If TJ Brody is still on the team, I would go with TJ. But if he's not there, I would go with Mark. He just
and many people would agree with you when it comes to Gio. They're saying that this is really becoming Matthew Tkachuk's team. We're seeing a passing of the torch. He's going to become the new captain of the Calgary Flames, just for the heart and the passion and the talent that the guy has, right? But how about for forward? What would you think? Mark Jankowski.
I would love to get rid of Mark Jankowski. I don't know.
I would take a different approach.
I would personally unprotect.
Sam Bennett?
I would personally go with Backlund. I think he's older. I think he's going to be older. I think depending on who you get during the draft in the next couple of years and prospect-wise and who you bring in, I think his time is running out with the Flames. I think he's had off years. He's had an off year this year, and I think he's only going to start to decline more. So I think that he's going to get the boot.
Wow,
Yeah.
I love Backlund.
I love Backlund too, but I think, again, you got to do what you got to do, I think. And if you have younger talent coming up, I think you got to do it. Phillips.
Yeah, definitely. I'm thinking I would say agree with Mike there, Backlund. Just from a contract perspective, he's 31. I think he's got 5 or 6 years left at $5 or $6 million, give or take. That could be nice to alleviate off the books once your younger players are coming up and need new contracts eventually. Just from the cap perspective, I'd maybe leave him unprotected. Maybe even leave him unprotected, but like give Seattle second or third. Leave him. But we're not going to protect him. We don't take him here. We'll give you a pick instead.
Because I'm thinking for centers. I mean, he's the Flames' second best center outside of Monahan, right? So, yeah, I don't know. And I love him because he can play the power play and he kills penalties. And wasn't he closing in on 20 goals? Like he was pretty good this season, I thought. But I don't know. I'm a big Backs fan, though. I'm a big Backlund fan. So for me, it'd probably be a guy like Mark Jankowski or I mean, Lucic, no, you can't, because you can't leave him unprotected, but I wish you could.
Even as like an Oilers fan from an outside perspective, I don't know. I would structure your team differently just from an outside viewpoint. I would play Lindholm at center of Tkachuk and Mangiapane as your first line.
Yeah, Lindholm, that was a great trade with Carolina. Like I'd never realized how dominant of a player he could be. But you know what? I love Lindholm with Johnny Hockey and Sean Monahan. They just have so much chemistry together. And the second line, you know, when you got Backlund and Tkachuk, you know, and did Mangiapane, didn't they?
Yeah, he's picked up there now.
Right now. Yeah. So, I mean, they're clicking really well too, right? And you got a multiple player. How about Derek Ryan? He's an interesting choice.
I liked his career path just from playing, I think, 5 years of junior and then 5 years at the U of A, signing the contract with Carolina in the minors for a bit, then made the NHL team, and then finally got his big ticket. That's a good story, and he's a good third liner.
I personally think he will probably be left unprotected as well. I just don't think that he will be taken.
Okay.
So I think we'll be okay. I think he's a good glue guy on our third or fourth line.
Yeah.
But going back to our series here, we have the Boston Bruins versus the Columbus Blue Jackets next. Another rematch from that, I would say, fantastic series last year they had when the Columbus Blue Jackets still had so much talent. They lost it all, but still somehow made it to that playoff run. And I think that's fantastic for them, but I don't think they have a chance in this series. I think Bruins win in 4 or 5. I think that you can't trust Columbus's young goaltending at this point. Are they going to play Korpisalo? Are they going to play Merzlikins? Either way, none of them have been there before. And I just think that Boston's so good defensively. Seth Jones won't be playing if it started today. And I just think that Columbus just can't handle Boston. Boston's one of the better teams in the league.
I'd agree with you. Boston's really hard. Like they're really hard to match up with just based on the strength of their team. And they also have a weird swagger in the playoffs. They just they get hot and they run with it. these last few years, especially, and they crave like the drama within the series, especially with Toronto, as you've seen the last 2 years. I've loved watching them, although they can't clinch that cup for some reason.
Guys like Patrice Bergeron, for Team Canada, Brad Marchand, Zdeno Chara, David Pasternak, and Rask between the pipe. I mean, I can't see Columbus beating Boston at all. I think, one of the biggest upsets in the NHL if they did. And I agree with you guys. I think that the experience is there, the talent is there, and I think the Bruins would take him at 5.
Definitely. I'd go 6, just because I think Tortorella is a good coach. He might be able to pull something out of his ass.
And Zach Werenski's a very good defenseman.
20-goal defenseman. You don't see that often.
And finally, the last series here is the Toronto Maple Leafs versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. Two offensive juggernauts going at one another here. 2 fantastic goalies. I would say 2 fantastic decors. 2 very well-balanced teams.
That's a tough call. Wow. Do we have a healthy Stamkos?
I'm going to say no. I think even if the season comes back in a couple months, he still doesn't play.
Wow. You know what? I'm going to actually pick the Leafs, not just from my heart, but I love their talent now. And I think Freddie Anderson, when he catches fire, he can be a dominant player. And John Tavares offers that leadership that they have, and such good balanced goal scoring too with Marner and Matthews. And I think their defense is a little suspect, but at the same time, that's where I think Anderson can really bail out his team, right? So I'd probably take Toronto, but in 7, because I agree with you. They're so well balanced, the 2 teams.
I'd go with Tampa just because I don't see them repeating last year. I think they don't want to have that happen again. I think they're going deep this season.
Yeah, coming into the break, Tampa, like the Flyers, was one of the hotter teams in the league for sure. I think Vasilevsky went on like a 17-game winning streak where he just couldn't lose. And I think that he's better than Frederik Andersen personally. And I think that the fact that they have been riding that hot streak and they want to go farther in the playoffs this year, I think they have the determination. And I think they had their adversity last year. And I think that offense is so unreal with Kucherov and Point. And I just think that team's going to get even better, even without Stamkos.
Another thing to add to that point, Mike, at the start of last season, they went on a crazy streak right away, and then they started to falter. They got that out early in the season, and they picked it up right when the Blues sort of did last season as well, right around that January 1st on, where they've been winning like crazy. I think that's the best way to go into the playoffs, personally. And plus, I'm also I played defense growing up, and I value a really good decor. I think they got the experience and also really good puck movement ability on the back end.
If you guys were to see another NHL franchise in Canada, where do you think that would be? Would it be Quebec City? Would it be Hamilton, Ontario? I mean, where would you see? Maybe in Saskatchewan? Could you imagine that? Like a team in Regina or Saskatoon, right?
I'd go Saskatchewan.
Where's that?
I'd go Saskatchewan or Saskatoon, personally. I think they would be able to support it. They've shown with the Rough Riders, they show up, personally. Yeah. And they're the only province in the Prairies here that don't have a team. I think they could very easily do it.
I'm going to go with Quebec. I think Quebec deserves a team again. I think they've been waiting so long, and that franchise they've got so many fans that want it, and I think they can support it just the same way that Montreal supported it. And I just think that Quebec deserves a team for sure.
Don't they have a new arena now too?
Yes, and I think
arena's built. Would you call them the Nordique again, or would you give them a different name?
I would stay with Nordique because I think you can just go. I think you got to stay with that original name that you started off with.
Here's a question though. Onto that, I don't think they would add a 33rd team. So who would you move?
I'm moving anybody at this point. I'm moving Arizona.
Fair enough.
I just think that the fact that if there's a Flames game, or if there's a Flames Arizona game in Arizona, there's more Flames fans than Arizona fans. I think you have something wrong with your team.
Yeah,
I would pick Florida if anything. I think their attendance isn't the greatest, and plus they have another team that a lot of people flock to instead. Arizona's kind of isolated in that sense.
You know what's interesting about Arizona is the fact that they've been floundering for so many years, yet they're one of the largest TV markets, and that's why Bettman wants them to flourish and do well. Like they're in the top 10 TV markets in the United States, in Arizona there. So
It's interesting.
A lot of it's the TV revenue that you can bring in, with the broadcast rights.
Definitely.
How many eyeballs? Yeah.
I do have a question about Arizona. Do you think that they're going to regret trading for Phil Kessel?
I think he's on the downward side of his career. I don't think we're going to see the numbers that he put up in Pittsburgh. I really don't. Or even Toronto, for that matter. I don't think we're going to see that anymore. How about you guys?
I would agree. Go ahead, Mike.
I think he was kind of carried by the better players in Pittsburgh. I think Gino and Crosby carried him to the numbers he got. It really helps a player when you have two playmakers like those two on your team. And now he kind of put himself in the position where he was the guy in Arizona. And I think that he couldn't handle that spotlight again. He was loving the Stanley Cup runs and everything like that. And I think the fact that now you have Taylor Hall and Phil Kessel, two guys that aren't ready to be the guy quite yet, I think that it was going to falter, I think, no matter what.
I would add on to Hal's point there. He's definitely on the downside of his career. They didn't really give up much. I think they gave up Galchenyuk, who's already been moved on from right away. And then also they gave up, I think, Pierre-Olivier Joseph, who's like a prospect defenseman. It comes down on him. If he turns out, I think it's a clear win for Pittsburgh. If he doesn't, it's a wish-wash at this point. There's two floundering players. And that trade needed to happen, right? So.
Yeah, Malcolm's going to leave for Russia if it didn't, so.
Yeah, I'd definitely prioritize Malkin over Kessel.
All right. On that note, I think that is all from us here at the Prairie Puck Boys podcast. Thank you for joining us, Hal. Where can people find you on social media?
Oh, yeah. Hal_Roberts on Twitter. I'm also on Instagram at TV News Hal, TV News Matt, and I'm also on Facebook as well. But feel free to follow me on Twitter. It'd be great to hear from you guys, and we can stay in touch. Something else I wanted to share with you guys is one of the other Sutters, I got to know Daryl Sutter as well a little bit, from my time in the media. And I remember a comment that he made that'll always stick with me. He says, Hal, a lot of times for coaches and general managers, when we're looking at players and we're looking at drafting players in different leagues, he said, the WHL usually comes out with the best defensemen, the Q has the best goalies, and the O has the best forwards.
Yeah,
I'll always remember that. I'll always remember that comment that he made to me.
Mm-hmm. Now, honestly, when you think about it, like of the stars of today, that's definitely what it seems like.
Yeah, the big bruising to forwards of the WHL. Like you were saying, the Dion Phaneufs, and the O has come out with some incredible forwards, and the Q. Guys like Martin Brodeur, Patrick Roy. I mean, yeah, it's been pretty consistent that way. So I just thought I'd leave you with that comment that he shared with me. It's pretty cool. And guys, this has been a lot of fun. It's been an honor too. Thank you so much for the invite.
Thank you for coming on.
We'll have to have you on once again soon.
Sounds good. Happy Easter, guys.
Happy Easter. Take care.
We will see you guys all later.